Hey boys and girls, welcome back. And I know that you've all been breathlessly awaiting the teardown of our Model S Plaid. This is going to be the last time you're going to see it in one piece. We're going to talk a little bit about what we saw and what we liked and maybe what could be improved. And one thing I did want to do was again thank SABIC for helping us out with the costs associated with the trip. It was very nice of them, and for those people who say nasty things about SABIC, just remember SABIC is a giant plastic company, not an oil company. So with that, I'd like to jump right in, and Cory and myself and Ben are going to tell you a little bit about what we liked and didn't like about the vehicle. Mostly it's going to be likes. I mean, this is a really fine vehicle. It's not anything like what we had when we first got the Model S or the Y or any of the other Teslas that we've had in. This thing is really and truly a superior luxury car. So with that, maybe what I can do is I'll tell you what I didn't like, and then we'll go into the things that we really, really did like. So I didn't really care much for the wind noise. The wind noise, if you're in the back, I spent a lot of time in the back seat because I had a lot of work to do, and the wind noise in the back seat on the passenger side of the rear seat really was noisy. Later on, we found out that it was one of the seals it just doesn't work. The other thing I didn't much care for was the seat belt arrangement in the back seat. It's very, very difficult to get that in. I highly recommend the easiest way to get rid of that would be to put an extension on the rear, like the receiver part of the seat belt. Then you can grab it and you can use two hands to put it together. Otherwise, you can't see what you're doing, and it just becomes a nightmare, a nuisance. And the last thing, I'm going to go in here and maybe just have a look at the car a little bit, but this rear seat is not Tesla-ish. I'd like you folks at Tesla to redo a couple of things, and it shouldn't be that hard. But number one, the seat is got kind of like the wrong angle, and if you're in this car for a long time and you're in the front seats, which I think are the best seats on the planet, everything's wonderful. But in the rear seat, for some reason or other, your back starts to hurt. Now, I never sat at all in the Model 3's rear seat, and I never heard anybody's complaints associated with the rear seat. But I would like to have Tesla kind of like look at some sort of a little redesign or whatever, and making this thing so that it's a little more comfortable. So that's my short list. In fact, it is a short list because we really didn't find that much wrong with the car.
Now, Sandy, one thing about the wind noise is they spent a lot of money on laminated glass,
yeah,
front and rear. So this is really nice for blocking sound, I mean, in the windshield and all side mirrors. But if you can't manage your seal here, it's all for nothing.
Right.
And we were just constantly reminded with that whistle.
Yeah. Now, this is not the side that comes loose, it's the other side. So if we swap over here and have a look, did anybody fix this thing
Nope.
for real? So here you go. You can see this is not clamped in. It just isn't doing its job. And like Cory just said, now, I see there's some cat's paw here. I actually shoved something in there because the whistling noise got to me. But this is either a malfunction on the design, or I can't even assemble it. So anyway, something's wrong here. This needs to be fixed. I don't know if it's on every vehicle, but I didn't care for that.
Yeah. All right, Sandy, so we rehashed some of the stuff we already covered in the road trip.
Yeah.
Now we want to get into the actual teardown. So Ben is going to run us
Well,
through.
the one thing before we do that, there's one thing that I really think is kind of important that we should talk about, and that is these naysayers that say that, oh, the Frunk, people only use it 10% of the time. Well, I'll tell you what, when you're looking at 10% of the time, this was the storage locker for the goodie bag. And when we came to different parts of the world, some of these things we sold, some of them we handed out. It was absolutely perfect. You can't believe how little things like this really make you a happy camper when you're fooling around with one of Tesla's vehicles. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh.
Now it's the teardown.
So we're going to get into the teardown very shortly, and Ben's going to run through that schedule. But before that, I want to talk about my driving experience after we got back from the road trip. So everyone saw the road trip, 3,500 miles, but from mid-December to mid-January, I drove this as a daily driver. I have a half mile on a dirt road. I do not have a level 2 charger at home, and I thought it was perfectly fine. I think I only once had to go to a supercharger, even using just a regular 15 amp the trickle charger that comes with this, because we do have level 2 charging here at Munro and Associates. So using an EV in the winter, I wanted to see how it actually affected me. So I parked it outside, not in my garage. It got covered in ice and snow several times. The door handles had no problem busting out of that. I was able to open the lift gate with the whole car covered in ice, and this whole line right here, you could hear it cracking and popping, but the rear liftgate powered through. So even though this is a $140,000, performance vehicle, the vehicle we had swapped out with the all-season tires, no problems whatsoever. And because of the weight of the vehicle, I more had the feeling of confidence I had driving my heavier SUV. So when you're driving a heavier vehicle, the grip level and the confidence level, I find it to be more satisfying than a real light vehicle that's front wheel drive. So I had no problems driving this for the better part of a month. Now, Sandy, you drove it
sparingly. Because Cory hogged it. None of us really got much of a chance to use this car because Cory fell in love with it, and that's the end of it. I mean, he let Ben drive it once from here to the end of the driveway, I think. But at the end of the day, I every time I got in it, I mean, it's quite a nice upgrade from the Model 3 that I'm going to be driving as a daily drive now. And like I say, this is if you're in the front seats anyway, this is truly a luxury vehicle. But Ben, what did you have to say about this?
No, I thought the drive was really good as well. All of the new features that Tesla's put in here with the steering yoke and everything, it all works well. It takes a few minutes to get accustomed to it, but it all seemed to function real well, get used to it. It almost seemed like second nature for everything. My only issue was the horn. I slammed down the airbag the one time I needed to use it. It didn't do anything, so the muscle memory wasn't there for the horn yet for pushing a button instead. But everything else, like you said, it drives great. It's a very comfortable ride, and it's a fun vehicle to drive.
Actually, that's one thing that happened. I was driving this thing and I wasn't paying attention because the car does so remarkably well that you get complacent. Anyway, I came up one of the dirt roads near where Cory and I live, and the guy in front of me just stopped. I don't know why. There was no reason for him to stop. Anyway, I wasn't paying attention. The car stopped on its own, and it made a big noise. It made big noise in here, but it also the horn went off. So that's the only time I even heard the horn, was when it blared at this guy that decided to stop in the center of the road. I know that there's a lot of folks from Nishta out there throwing rocks, and I heard that there's another guy, that wants to become famous by putting his name into, I don't know, it was a Wall Street Journal or whatever. Somebody that says, hey, I'll pay you $1 million or something if you can find anything else that does what he classifies as an improper safety issue that's supposedly on here that I've never experienced. At the end of the day, that thing saved me from slamming right into the back end of that car. That's the first time that that's ever happened with me, and I was delighted that that the car stopped on its own. So, from you know, what do you think standpoint, that alone, as far as I'm concerned, was worth $100 grand. So I'm pretty happy about that. Yeah.
All right, Ben, so let's get into the teardown cadence. Can you walk us
Wait a
through
minute, are you going to talk about the
track day?
The track.
I think this video will be released after the track day, is that right?
Oh, okay.
So everybody will have seen that. It was pretty wild. I tried to push it to its limit until I actually lost control, which was pretty fun. So moving on, Ben, let's walk through the teardown cadence, and I want to know, what are we going to see first, and what systems are we going to prioritize?
All right, well, we're actually going to start the teardown this afternoon. We're going to be taking the frunk out today so we can get a look at the thermal system. It should all be very similar to the heat pump that was on the Model Y, but we're going to take a close look at that today. Tomorrow, we're going to put it up on a hoist. We're going to start draining the fluids, and we're going to get the battery pack out tomorrow is the plan. We want to get into those that system and see what they've done on this vehicle. We're also going to start to drop the cradles as well. So we're going to get into the electric powertrain all the way around. We want to get to the motors so we can start tearing those apart next week. So here in the next week or two, you should see some videos on the battery and the electric powertrain, which is what we thought is the most interesting part of this and what everybody talks about after they get to drive it.
What's in store for the yoke? So
For the
we're going to do
yoke,
something special?
we're going to start with the powertrain. That's what we tear down first. Then we're going to start taking out some interior. We're going to look at the seats. Look closely at the seats, front seats of this, compare them with the Model 3 or the Model Y. Sandy's said multiple times that he likes both of the seats. We're going to see what they've done different. Take a little bit of a look at the rear seats as well, just to see if we can see anything there. I'm going to take the IP out, look at the yoke. We're going to compare the yoke back to the Model Y and the Mach-E and look at this design from an engineering standpoint. And see what Tesla's done to be able to save some costs on their side and some of the advantages that this system has from an engineering standpoint. And then we're also going to start to look at the ADAS system at that point. We'll have the vehicle torn down enough that we can look at it, but we should be doing 2 to 3 videos a week for the next 8 weeks or so, going through the entire vehicle, looking at everything that's there. But those are some of the highlights that are going to be coming up.
And hang on. Is this?
Are you sure we don't pull this out?
Hang on. Let me see. Ooh, whoa, nice.
Oh my goodness, what is that?
I think they integrated the air tank into the crosscar beam.
It looks like a sideways Jaguar engine.
Oh, there we go.
There we are. Okay, there's one. No.
So this is the air tank for the air suspension, integrated into a structural member.
Cool.
So smart.
You know, the integration on these cars is just to die for. I mean, to do this, you'd have to have the suspension guys, the hydraulics, pneumatics and hydraulics guys, the electronics guys, the structural guys, because this is also a cross-car beam. Everybody would have to be involved in every decision. And by the way, boys and girls, this is the first time we're looking at it. We did not know that we were going to find that. You know what? Let's just pop the rest. Let's get these side covers off.
Here, I see them. They pop straight up. See?
Yeah.
No broken
Very good,
clips.
Brent.
Look at that.
Oh, look at, see, Cory didn't
road.
clean this car. That's what Cory's done. Here you go, Ben. Okay. So what we're looking at here is we're just looking at the tops of the suspension system, and we can see that this has got, you can see now that it's got an air suspension system, but you can see that they really spent some time and effort on these A-arms. This is This is going to be a lot of fun to get into. So here, I don't think we're not going to need any tools here. Let's just,
this looks,
something's going on over here. This is something holding it in place.
so
Oh,
here's
here
your
we go.
bolts.
Here was some nuts, or some screws rather. Yeah. The other thing that Ben brought up as well, this is all flocked. Flocking is something you use for, first off, giving it a more luxurious feel, but also it keeps the what do you call it? The noise down.
So
Does
this
that-
has to be removed to get to the bolts. You look at the video to map it. Here, watch.
Yeah.
Pull this out. So, I might have to
Oh,
remove it. So it's a-
here we go. It's got bits in there.
I noticed several bolt locations right here. See?
And there's your emergency exit for the kid that decided to get into the trunk.
So it looks like there's 4 fasteners. 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're all common to hold the front substrate in.
Yeah.
So you can see there's no tools necessary to take all this out. Our first tool we're going to encounter is here with these 4 bolts. You want to really secure this down.
Yeah. Yeah. This is actually part of crash worthiness usually. So this is going to be like a little
And-
crush can.
From the first thing that I see, the heat pump system, I can see the super manifold right here looks very similar to the super manifold that was on the Model Y that we had. The heat exchanger here looks like a very similar location. Once we get this out, we're going to do a whole episode on the thermal system.
And you can see the front motor here a little bit. This even the casing doesn't look
Yeah,
similar.
It should be essentially a Model 3 rear motor with a carbon fiber wrapped.
Yeah.
It should be.
Okay, so it's,
So Sandy, let's talk about removing the trim. How did that compare to removing the trim on the Model Y? Remember that?
okay, well the Model, yeah, the Model Y stuff was broken. It wasn't really fastened. I don't really care to have too much in the way of exposed fasteners. I know some people say, oh, it makes that technology look. To me, it looks like, I don't know, just throw some bolts at it. It doesn't really give me a really happy feeling. This thing here, just, you saw it. It was just perfectly covered. Everything about that look to me says, I know what I'm doing. I've spent some time making sure that everything is as right as it can be. That's what an engineer should do. When you're an engineer and you're working on a car, it's like you're creating a baby. It becomes your baby, and you want to have your baby cute as you can possibly get it. And I thought that clean look under the hood here was absolutely wonderful. Or bonnet. I don't want to call it a hood anymore because it's really not.
First thing I noticed, Sandy, I noticed when we got this was screwed all the way in, and this one was all the way down. So I wanted to see if there was any fender alignment issues, and I already see a large aluminum spacer right there underneath this fender mounting point.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, and there's not over here.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe you can walk through body fitment. That's the first.
Okay, so
This is
when you start fooling around with the body, lots of stuff happens. This has got an aluminum stamped body, so this is a little different. I like aluminum because it's light. I hate it if I'm actually trying to work on it. It gives you all kinds of variation that really kill you. And that's why this is a low volume vehicle, because if you start getting in a high volume with with a high volume with aluminum, you start running into some serious issues. So let's just put the screws in the bottom here so we don't lose them.
I've got a bag going over there for you. So.
Oh, do you? It's caught in a J-hook.
Are they the same?
They're
Probably
all
going to be
the
the
same.
same.
You never know. Remember we did the rear tub on the Model Y, and the bolts were not common for all the fasteners. So that's why I asked that, Sandy. Remember
Yeah,
that?
these are all the same length.
Well, let's
Fish that
just
through.
get this out of here. Here's you.
So what do you think of this, Sandy?
Well,
You know?
the tub is good, and apart from the fact that you've got to dink around with that cover plate, that looks pretty good.
Well, look, a new nomenclature. I'm surprised people haven't picked this out yet. Super beam.
With a happy face.
We got super manifold. You got super beam, which is what they're calling that. They're proud of.
They're proud of what they do, and that. I don't know what the happy face is for, but anyway, that super beam works for me. I'd be happy if I was the engineer that did that. And you can see right now that lots of stuff is hung off of this, and I'm trying to figure out. I can't really tell what all's going on here, but there's lots of stuff that we're going to find as we start to take this thing to pieces. I'm pretty excited about this.
The first thing that we noticed that we knew was on this from some research we had done is that the old super manifold and octo valve had two integrated pumps. We did hear that there was extra auxiliary pumps. This is what we typically see with other OEMs, where you have disassociated low voltage coolant pump mounted to a discrete bracket. But one thing I can say is they integrated the mounting provision into this casting that the AC pump or heat pump rests on.
Same.
So there is no separate bolted on bracket. So I can already see some ingenuity. If you're going to add an extra separate pump, at least don't add an additional bracket to the system.
This is kind of interesting too. I've never seen a situation for the upper A-arm like this going to a frame. Have you?
Yeah, we'll have to compare and contrast to the previous model years.
Well, it's compact, anyways. That's the thing that I'm looking at. You know, this is it's definitely filled with stuff, but everything seems to be put in a spot that gives you the impression that this has been engineered and not just tossed together. I like the fact that they've got that enclosed as well.
And
I'm trying to figure out.
so that's just the radiator.
Yeah, I know, but
And notice that you have two.
yeah,
There's two of them. This vehicle being so high performance, you probably have a ton of heat rejection needed for the motors and the battery. They eliminated the condenser. So the condenser is now integrated into the super manifold right here. This is the liquid cooled condenser. So even though this macro level sticker was put on here, if you peel that back, this says chiller down here. This is your liquid cooled condenser. So here's where you're rejecting your heat when your air conditioning's on. And then the ethylene glycol that flows through here then flows through one of these heat exchangers, and it's rejected to the environment.
atmosphere.
But you have redundant radiators, so you have an additional radiators too, and they're separate. So that's interesting.
This whole thing is interesting. So I think that what I'd like to do is maybe let's just stop right here and let you know that, okay, so we've taken off the first little beauty color covers here, and we're already kind of impressed. So this is going to be a lot of fun. On behalf of Cory and Ben and myself, thanks again for watching, and we'll have lots more real soon that you can sink your teeth into. Thanks a lot for watching Munro. Bye.